Thanks, Sabrina. Tensions are rising in the Middle East after the Prime Minister of Lebanon, Saad Hariri, resigned from his post in Saudi Arabia last week. It's the latest move in what many regional analysts are calling a Cold War between the region's two main powers, Iran and Saudi Arabia. Talking Points contributor Elijah Shama is here to break down these developments. Elijah, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Elijah, why would the Lebanese Prime Minister resign in the Saudi capital?
It's really interesting because the Lebanese Prime Minister is actually a Saudi Arabian citizen. He has two passports, and kind of his resignation in Riyadh is a very clear signal that kind of Saudi Arabia has its pockets in a lot of these countries that we don't necessarily think about. And by kind of the Lebanese Prime Minister resigning, they're showing that he kind of forgot the hand that fed him, and now he's been recalled, so to speak.
So now that Saudi Arabia is ultimately losing a proxy fight with Iran in Yemen, and now they're angling towards what seems like Lebanon, what is the nation's play in all of this?
It's really interesting because it's just that. They're losing the war in Yemen. Syria, they were not able to kind of exert that influence that you'd think. Iran and Hezbollah kind of swept into that war and very much turned the tide in it. And then when you look at Lebanon, they haven't been able to kick Hezbollah out of Lebanon for a large part of the time, so it's kind of strange to think why they'd be able to do it now. And by getting rid of Saad Hariri, who was in a way their client, it kind of seems like they shot themselves in the foot without knowing what came next.
Now, Salman's efforts so far haven't really been successful. What sort of changes should we be expecting?
It's interesting because he seems to kind of double down. When we look at the war in Yemen, that's kind of not gone well for the Saudi government. When we look at Syria, they poured billions of dollars in. They didn't get the results they want. When we look at Lebanon, Saad Hariri wasn't able to kind of give those results they wanted either. So it's interesting because they've kind of thrown money at a lot of these problems and nothing's stuck. But he's been able to double down on a lot of these issues. The war in Yemen, increased bombing. Kind of the Syrian civil war, increased support for whatever rebels they were supporting. And then in Lebanon, more support for kind of Saudi foreign investment, and then pressuring the Lebanese government economically by pulling out that foreign investment and telling the residents to come back.
So what would Iran want in all of this if this is multiple conflicts going on throughout the region with the same power?
Iran is looking to kind of extend its sphere of influence as far as they can push it. And it seems that Saudi Arabia has either been unwilling or unable to counteract that influence. So Iran's going to try to keep pushing as far as they can take it. And right now, that's made it all the way to Syria. And that's a little too close to comfort for Saudi Arabia.
Now, Elijah, real quick, is there some sort of grand strategy on part of Saudi Arabia?
It's interesting because when you look at this, you can think it's a grand strategy, but really there's three people calling the shots, and people often have reasons for doing things, and those aren't necessarily clear right now. But if it is part of a grand strategy, it's very unclear what that strategy is at the moment.
Elijah, coming in to help us at the very last minute, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate coming.